I always had a passion for the ocean and what can be found there, especially big scary sea monsters. And to have a game that 95% of the time happens underwater is like a dream. There is nothing quite like it. Interesting environment, a beautiful world to explore, and of course, the fan favorites, Leviathans. But that wouldn't be enough to make you keep playing and immerse you in this world. And here comes the story. And I have to say that Subnautica really has a very interesting and mysterious story that ties everything together and made the best underwater game that exists. The game is filled with information that can be found everywhere, so much that it will overwhelm you at times. And so in this video I want to explain and tell you the complete story of Subnautica. So grab some water and nutrient bars or just some cooked peppers, because this will be a long one. Let's begin. The main plot of the story revolves around an ancient and very advanced alien species, known as the Precursors or the Architects. Due to their advanced technology, they were able to populate multiple planets and grew quite large in numbers. To travel much faster between those planets, they built multiple warp gates that will teleport them around the planetary system. During one of their expeditions to an unknown planet to expand their system, they encounter a very deadly and contagious bacteria that infected the Precursors, who have come in contact with the planet. This bacteria is known as CRA. This virus was very complex in structure and very hard to deal with. The Precursors noticed the infection too late, so their efforts to quarantine the bacteria failed, and it spread very quickly through their networks and infected all of their core planets. The CRA bacteria has 4 stages. First one is gradual immune system failure. Stage 2 is green skin, cysts and veins all over the body and flu-like symptoms. Stage 3, unpredictable alteration of biological structures, and the final stage, the complete shutdown of executive functions. The full incubation of the bacteria is only 2 weeks, meaning once you are infected, if untreated, you'll be dead in 2 weeks or so. And this is exactly what happened to the Precursor race. Over time, more than 143 billions died. We don't know how long they had this problem or when it happened. It could be thousands or even millions of years ago. Because the Precursor failed to deal with the bacteria, they quarantined all core planets to stop the further spreading of the bacteria to other worlds, and multiple teams of uninfected individuals were given samples of the bacteria and sent to different planets to find an antidote. They eventually stumble upon a planet which we know as 4546b. This planet was mostly covered in water, with only a few small islands. We know only 2 places that have more fauna and flora. Sector 0, a very cold place, and an inactive volcano crater that allowed the marine life to flourish. Apart from the 2, there is the ecological dead zone, or the void, which makes up most of the planet. The water here is very deep and dark, and only 2 species are known to live here: microscopic organism and Leviathan class creatures. When the Precursors arrived on the planet, they began to construct multiple facilities to start the development of the vaccine. They created a facility in the interior of a volcano that functions as a giant thermoplant that will collect energy from the lava and distribute it to the other facilities. Then they construct the primary containment facility, situated in the deepest point of the crater, where most of the research is made. And also the disease research facility, where they had the samples of the bacteria, situated in the Lost River. They eventually found that the Leviathan class creatures are not affected by the bacteria due to something in their digestive system. So one of the Precursors researchers, known as Alan, made a reckless decision. He took one of the sea dragon's eggs to the disease facilities to study the hatching process, in hopes that he will find something useful. The big problem was that the sea dragon was not very happy about that, so she had smashed right into the facility at a very high speed. The impact destroyed the facility and it collapsed on the seafloor, but the worst problem was that in the impact the bacteria escaped, and shortly the entire planet was infected. The sea dragon died immediately after due to head trauma. You can find her body nearby. This event happened roughly 1000 years ago. The Precursors took immediate action to quarantine the entire planet. First, they construct the Quarantine and Force platform, a giant weapon that will shoot everything that tries to enter or exit the planet. But they still have to find an antidote, and now they had to hurry because the bacteria started to kill the planet. To slow down the infection process, they created created an artificial species known as the warpers. By combining multiple creatures together and with some biomechanical parts to allow them to communicate to each other and also to allow them to teleport around. The Precursors spread them through the crater and tasked them to kill any infected individual they find. After some time they finally find a species that has potential for a vaccine. The Sea Emperor. An extremely large leviathan that is also intelligent and has telepathic powers. It seems that not only they are immune to the bacteria, but they also expels the enzyme 42 from their digestive system in the water. After a few tests, they discovered that the enzyme can kill the bacteria. The problem was that they were a bit too late. Because of the large size of the Sea Emperors, they were few in numbers, and they also reproduced just once in their entire lifetime. And because the bacteria killed their food source, only one specimen and a few eggs remained. The specimen that remained was very old, around 1600 years, and the enzyme it expels was incomplete. It had the ability to stabilize the bacteria and make it dormant for a period of time, allowing the individuals to live a bit longer, but it was not a solution. They created a giant aquarium where they captured the Sea Emperor for study. To make sure it survives, they create an artificial ecosystem and a network of vents that will bring fresh food for her. The last problem was the eggs. To find a cure, they needed a young, healthy specimen, and the eggs needed a special enzyme to hatch. Usually the parent buries the eggs in the shallow waters, and they will get the enzyme from there. But again, because of the bacteria, this condition was no longer met. The Precursors tried to create an artificial enzyme, but they did not know the recipe, so anything they tried failed. They did not have too much time left, and they started to lose their patience, so they forced the Sea Emperor fetus out of its egg, but it died in that process, so all of their efforts were in vain. As a final thing, they noticed that the peepers can carry the Sea Emperor enzyme, and they were capable to give it to other creatures, so they developed even further the pipe network and built more vents throughout the crater, where the peepers will travel and spread the enzyme. Because of this, the planet survived on the limit. The Sea Emperor tried many times to communicate with the Precursors, but they were unable to hear it. It is not clear why, but it could be because they were half mechanical. The Precursors ran out of time, so they had to leave the planet. They left the weapon active so the bacteria will not spread to other planets, and only a non-infected individual can deactivate it. Also, Alan, the guy who triggered the bacteria outbreak, was stored away in a cube-like device in Sector 0, but we don't know why. Possibly as a self-punishment because he felt guilty for not finding a cure and infected the planet, or it was imprisoned there by the other Precursors. And so the planet was basically left to rot. And for the next 1000 years, nobody will come in contact with the planet 4546b. Just a few decades ago, the Earth started to be pretty advanced. They were able to construct a couple of phase gates that allowed them to travel much faster in space. In this period, a corporation called Altera started to grow in size and power, but it did it in a, well, let's say, unethical way. There was a war between two parties, and Altera supplied both of them with weapons, and so they made tons of money out of it. With their new pile of cash, they started to develop multiple technologies and phase gates. They own 9% of the total phase gates, which is probably a lot, maybe even the number one. They were mainly specialized in space missions and other space related stuff. Mining operations, spaceships development, planet explorations, you name it. They have a big competitor though, a Mongolian company named Torgal Corporation, and they will be the focus in the next section. Around 10 years ago, 6 members of Torgal Corporation embarked into a spaceship called Degasi to go on a space station that was far away. The crew members were the CEO of the company, Paul Torgal, his son Bart Torgal, a mercenary called Marguerite Maida, hired by Paul to protect them in case they stumble upon space pirates, and other 3 unnamed members. On the way to the space station, they took a detour from the usual route to visit a mysterious planet, which was our water-infected planet 4546b. When they entered the atmosphere of the planet, the alien weapon shoots the Degasi ship and they crashed into the planet.
Change course. Set thrusters to full.
If you remember, nobody is allowed to enter or exit the planet because it's under quarantine. At the crash, 6 crew members died and only Marguerite, Paul and Bart remained. They managed to swim to a small island where they built a base and 2 observatories, and they lived there for a period of time. The problem was that they did not have enough resources to build or eat. Marguerite and Bart wanted to go into the ocean, but Paul didn't like the idea.
This island is a godsend. Look out of the window. No predators, fresh food.
No building materials, nothing left of the ship, and your kid says we're gonna starve without more grow beds. Speak up, kid.
It's true, Father. The natural growth rates are too slow to keep supporting us.
Bart was an intelligent guy and he was very happy to be on this planet because he was amazed by the life that lives here and wanted to learn more about it. A couple of weeks later a storm started. It buried half of their bases in dirt and the majority of their food sources was washed by the sea. Because of this, Marguerite was able to finally convince Paul to make a base underwater where they will have more resources.
We take what we can carry and hunker down in a cave somewhere. I scouted a site. Couple 100 meters deep, lots of metal deposits.
How do you imagine we'd live?
With ready access to building materials, like damn queens.
Send the coordinates to my PDA. I'll review your proposal.
They made a new base in the Purple Mushroom Cave, where they lived pretty well for a while. But the base started to leak and sink. Later, Bart found something on the scanner 500 meters below, and they needed to investigate it if they want to escape the planet. And so they made their final base in the Grand Rift, where they discovered that they are infected with Kra.
Please, stop fighting and listen. We're sick.
What?
How?
You've been coughing, right? Feeling itchy? Blisters?
Yeah.
The biometrics would have warned us if we were sick.
It's something new. It's not in the database. It's an alien bacteria. It's everywhere. Every organism on this planet. It's altering our genetic code.
How are the creatures surviving if they're infected?
They spent a couple of weeks there and Bart continued to study the fish to see how they are still alive. The reason why the Degasi survived on the planet for a couple of months even though the bacteria kills you in 2 weeks is maybe because they enter in contact or have eaten peppers that carry the enzyme 42 and it slowed the infection process so they were able to stay alive for a longer period. Marguerite was the one who went outside to hunt fishes to give Bart to study and maybe find a cure. At one point she managed to capture a Reaper Leviathan and brought it to the base so Bart could study it.
Say kid, I brought you something.
Is that a Leviathan outside?
Towed it home on the back of the sub.
You killed that thing? Are you out of your mind? You brought that thing here? What if it's not as dead as it looks? What if others come?
And, well, that's what kinda happened. A much bigger Leviathan has sensed the almost dead Reaper. Meanwhile, Paul and Marguerite started another fight. Bart tried to talk to them but with no success, so he went outside to take a break. But this was when the tragedy happened.
I'm going outside.
Bart, Torgal has disembarked the habitat.
Bart, come in. It's dangerous. Damn it, boy. I know you can hear me.
Chief, get off the radio and put on your helmet.
What?
Brace!
From the sound we can guess that the Reaper Leviathan attacked the base, but from the description we have from Paul, it is pretty clear that the Reaper screamed in fear because he was attacked by a sea dragon.
Came out of nowhere. An alien kraken, bigger than a cyclops. I told her. I said others would come. The rupture threw me clear of the habitat, and the monster turned and bore down on me, just as its tentacles came within reach.
We know that the sea dragons usually hunt Reaper Leviathans and force them deeper where they will lead them, and they are also bigger than the Cyclops and have tentacles. The habitat was destroyed. Paul managed to escape the attack but he started to run out of oxygen and he eventually drowned and died. Bart had successfully swum to the surface back to their original base on the island.
This is the first time I've seen sunlight in months. After all that time in the deep, I'd been dreaming of it. Now that I'm back here, I'm finding it hard to enjoy alone. Father was right. We should never have left this place. We shouldn't have gone so deep. They do not want us down there. Despite my best efforts, ill health is taking hold of me. The visions are getting worse. Marguerite and Father are now part of the ecosystem of this incredible planet. It's reassuring to know that when I go, I'll join them. Until then, well, there's always the view.
And so Bart later died because of the bacteria infection. He also mentions something about visions. This could possibly be just because of the sickness or mental problems after all that time spent in the deep and that incident, but it is also possible that the Sea Emperor was trying to communicate with him through telepathy like we see in the game, but we don't know for sure. While we are here, I should also mention that the Sea Emperor is still alive, even though when it was captured by the Precursors it had 1600 years, and now it should be around 2600 years. Far more than it should have lived. We'll talk more about this and how she managed to live so long a bit later when we get to meet her properly. But now, back to the Degasi. We know from the logs that Bart and Paul believe that Marguerite died in the attack, but we later find out that she actually survived. She managed to kill the Reaper with a knife, for good this time. But until she managed to do this, the Reaper already brought her into the middle of the void. The dead body of the Reaper starts to float back to the surface. She made a shelter in his carcass and ate his flesh to stay alive, with the hope that maybe the body will float until they will reach an island. After a couple of weeks, the body started to rot and sink, but luckily for her, she also spotted land. So basically she traveled from the crater through the void all the way to Sector 0. She built a base and a greenhouse there. She later have come back to the Reaper corpse and she put it in her base. Now, I know what you're probably asking. How Marguerite survived the infection? This part of Marguerite's story is Below Zero territory. I don't want to talk it down, but Below Zero story has a lot of plot holes and missing information that are, well, crucial to the story. I will try my best to find an explanation that makes just a little bit more sense, but don't hire your hopes too much. The first theory is that she is naturally immune to the bacteria, but we know that she had signs of infection, so this is not the case. Or maybe because she have eaten so much flesh from the Reaper Leviathan who are immune, but then how the Precursors didn't find anything about this? The only possible explanation is one that can be found in the game, but I don't personally like it. In Below Zero you can craft the enzyme 42 by combining two plants, so Marguerite could have just eaten these two. She has a greenhouse after all, but we will get to the problem with the cure later in the video, so for now this is the only logical explanation we have. And this is the end of the Degasi story. And this brings us to the present, or 10 years later. Because Paul and his son went missing, the Torgal Corporation started to lose power, until it wasn't a real competitor anymore, and Altera became much bigger, possibly even the biggest corporation on Earth. They construct a giant ship called the Aurora, where more than 100 people could fit in. From here on, the events of the first game starts. The Aurora was sent to expand the Phase Gates network, a multi-trillion credit investment, but they're also tasked with a secret mission that only the higher-ups knew about, to search and find what happened to the Degasi crew. After a couple of months they reached the planet 4546b, but when they entered into the atmosphere of the planet, they were shot by the Quarantine Enforced platform. On the impact, the ship destroyed all the fauna and flora nearby. The nuclear reactor was also damaged and it released radiation in the area, turning the water yellow. The only thing that remained there was sand and Reaper Leviathans. Multiple lifeboats were hijacked, but only one managed to land somewhere safe. This was Lifepod 5. And on board was our protagonist, Riley Robinson. The rest of the lipods and survivors either sunk into the sea, land too close to predators, or were hunted by the warpers after they got infected. Riley was the only survivor of the Aurora. He was the non-essential system maintenance chief, so he probably didn't know about the secret mission. Throughout the game, he receives multiple radio messages about the other survivors and their life pod locations, but every time he goes to check it, no one can be found, so it seems that he is the only one alive. The PDA and the warper messages confirm this as well.
New targets unaccounted for. 1.
0 human life signs detected.
But even if he is the only human on the planet, he is not alone. He received a weird telepathic vision.
What are you?
This is the Sea Emperor that noticed him, but he doesn't notice just yet. So for the moment he will ignore it. Luckily for Riley, a cargo ship received a distress call from the Aurora, and they will come to pick him up. And when Riley arrives at the meeting point, he discovers an alien base. While he explores it, he learns about the Kara bacteria and the fact that he is infected with it. He goes into the control room of the base and he is informed that the planet is under quarantine and only uninfected individuals can deactivate the platform. So he needs to find a cure so he will not die, and to also turn off the alien weapon to leave the planet. Meanwhile, the Sunbeam finally arrives. When they enter the atmosphere of the planet, well, I think you already know what happened. Not too long after that, the Aurora's core quantum detonate, releasing even more radiation than before. So he goes to seal the crack on the nuclear reactor and the radiations were stopped. Riley starts to explore the planet more and more and he goes deeper and deeper. He found all 3 Degasi bases and learned about their fates. And he also finds the passage that lead him to the Lost River, a place full of fossils of giant creatures that are now extinct. There he finds the sea dragon remains in another alien base where the warpers were created. But the infection started to advance even more. Green cysts appear all over his body, so he needs to hurry. He goes even deeper in the cave system and reaches the lava zone, where multiple sea dragons lives. Side note, do not try to kill them. They are already near extinct, so do not contribute to it. There he finds the 3rd base in the interior of what I like to call the lava castle, where he finds a blue alien tablet. After he takes it, he is contacted again by the Sea Emperor.
Come here, to me.
He also found the location of the main alien facility in the deepest point of the crater, 1.5 kilometers underwater. Before he enters the facility, he receives the final telepathic message.
I am what you seek. Want to help you.
When he enters the alien base, he discovers all the research made by the Precursors for a cure, and he finally meets the Sea Emperor herself. She tells Riley that the Precursors couldn't hear her, and so she asks him to help her to hatch her eggs, and by extension, he will be cured. He activates the portal inside the aquarium so her child could leave the place, so they will be able to live freely, and the Sea Emperor gives him the recipe for the enzyme to hatch the eggs. So Riley gathers all the ingredients and hatch the eggs. The childs produce the enzyme 42 and Riley is finally cured. The child swim to the portal and are now free. But the big Sea Emperor collapses because of her old age and dies not too long after. Okay, so let's discuss how she was still alive. It's never explained, but it could be a combination of 2 things. One, the aquarium environment might have something like a life support that prolong her life. Even in real life, many animals live longer in captivity. And the second could be a natural biological response. Because she was the last of her kind, she will stay alive until her child will be born. This will explain why she collapsed right after the eggs hatched. Now the Sea Emperor child started to swim around the crater, where they will produce the complete enzyme which spread everywhere, and so the whole planet is cured and saved. Then Riley goes to deactivate the alien weapon. He builds the Neptune rocket and finally leaves the planet. But before he reaches the Earth, he stopped by Altera until he pays 1 trillion credits. And this is because he used the resources from the planet and, well, technically is owned by Altera. What happens to him after that? Well, he needs to somehow pay that bill, but it's more likely that he is promoted or something like that. I mean, he's the guy who discovered a lot of alien technologies and open access to a planet full of resources. I don't really believe that he will actually need to pay that money. With all this information, Altera is very interested in planet 4546b. So in a couple of years, they send multiple research teams to the planet. I think it's time to talk a bit about the next location, which is Sector 0. There are a few problems with it. First, how is Sector 0 life? There are no alien vents there, so the incomplete enzyme from the Sea Emperor didn't reach this place. Also, we can't see any Arctic peepers in the aquarium or normal peepers in Sector 0, so we don't have anything to at least speculate. So let's just pretend they survive somehow until now. But how it was cured? Well, this is much easier to answer. In the first early access period, the game had the Sea Emperor, who could just have swim to this place. I mean, it is a Leviathan after all, so traversing the void should not be a big deal for him. But this is no longer canon, and the Emperor is no longer there, so, just below zero, so let's move on. One of the researchers sent to the Sector 0 was Sam, a girl specialized in robotics. She developed the spy penguins. She also had a sister named Robin, who worked on Xenoworks, and she hated Altera, and mocks her sister and tells her that Altera is a greedy evil company. But Xenoworks is bought at some point by Altera, so basically she ends up in the same place. While exploring one of the areas, the workers discover a cave by accident, where a frozen Leviathan infected with Kara can be found. I guess not all Leviathans were immune to the bacteria. Altera quickly starts to study the bacteria to potentially find something that will help humanity in the future. But Sam doesn't trust Altera, and believes that they will use it for something bad, so she later allies with Marguerite, and together they will make a plan to stop them. Sam develops a cure by combining two plants and creating the enzyme 42, which, well, is kinda stupid. I mean, you're gonna tell me that a person that is specialized in robotics develops an antidote for Kra, but an entire advanced alien race couldn't? Yeah, Below Zero has some problems when it comes to the story, so let's just pretend it happened. Sam hides the cure from Altera, and Marguerite advises her to blow up the whole cave, and so she does exactly that. She puts the explosive all over the cave, but before she could do anything, she's caught by a guard, and she accidentally detonates the place, killing her and the guard. Altera later sends a message to Robin, informing her of her sister's death. But Robin didn't believe that her sister died just by an accident. That was her fault. So she goes to check it herself. And from here, the events of Below Zero starts. Robin goes unauthorized on planet 4546b, and she blends into a meteor shower so Altera will not see her. She crashed into the planet and begins to search right away. Her only clue is to go to the Delta Island. On the way there, she picks a distress call, so she goes to see from where it comes, and she stumbles upon Alan, the precursor that was responsible for the Kara outbreak. He has been stuck here for the last 1000 years. The facility where he is stored in is almost out of power, so he asks Robin to give her a new storage. She offers her PDA, but instead he enters in her mind. Robin tells him to leave, but Alan informs her that she needs to build him a new body to transfer from her mind. But in order to make a new body for him, she needs to scan 3 body parts first. And because Alan was disconnected from his network for so long, he can no longer remember the location of the other bases. So throughout the game, she will send Robin locations to find multiple artifacts that will restore his memory. But for the moment, she goes back to her original missions, and goes to the Delta Island, where she finds an Altera satellite that tracks her location. Immediately after, she meets with Marguerite, who thinks she is with Altera, and tells Robin to stay away from her. Robin's PDA is able to track her approximative location down, so she goes to her underwater base. Marguerite tells Robin that she has information about her sister, but first she will need to deactivate the Altera satellite that also tracks her location, and only after that she will tell Robin what she knows. So she goes to turn off the satellite and learns about the bacteria and how her sister died. Robin decides to honor her sister's memory by finishing her mission. She finds the antidote in a little cave and she injects it into the frozen Leviathan's body, and the bacteria is gone for good. The only thing that remained is to find all 3 body parts, and she does exactly that. And now she needs to go to the last alien facility, which is located in a crystal cave. After she avoids a couple of shadow Leviathans, she enters in the facility, builds the body and transfers Alan out of her mind. Alan finally reveals his past and his mistakes, and now he needs to hurry back home to see if anyone of his kind is alive, or if they all died because of the bacteria. He invites Robin to come with him to his home planet, and well, now with her sister gone and the giant corporation after her because of what she has done, she accepts. After all, she has nothing left here. They restore a warp gate and build a spaceship, and they are ready to leave. And the last shot we have of the game is a glimpse of the Precursors planet, and the story is finished. What can I say other than what a crazy ride. Unfortunately, we didn't find out if the Precursors are extinct or not, or even they are still infected, or even if they are alive but still infected. But you know, Subnautica 3 was confirmed, so there is always room for answers. Subnautica is a game that already impressed me with only the aquatic creatures and environment, but the addition of an alien race plot was something that I could not predict, and I was very pleased and amazed by it. The game really left me hungry for more information. And if you have felt the same, that means the story and environment did their job perfectly. I mean, you can scan pretty much everything in this game, and each entry is loaded with information. And although not all of them are relevant to the main plot, they are still very interesting to read. There were a few plot holes along the way, but as long as they do not make you really think about it or do not contradict what we already know, they are no big deal. And it's not like the first game was free of those problems. For example, the warpers were made by the Precursors, and they seemed to be immune to the bacteria. So why they did not just transfer their minds to those bodies? Or why didn't they use the same principle to cure themselves? You can say that the warpers are not immune to the bacteria, but we cannot see any infected one in the game, and you'll think that someone who is tasked to interact with infected creatures will also get infected. So even though I've talked down about Below Zero, it's not like he's the only one with problems. It's just they didn't hide or cover them as good as the first game. But overall, it was one of the best stories in a video game. A truly marvelous game. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and if you are interested to see more content like this, please consider subscribing. I will make sure to cover the story of Subnautica 3 as well, whenever that will happen, and many other games. Okay, this video is already kinda extra, so thank you so much for watching, and I hope I will see you in my next video. Until then, have a wonderful rest of the day, and be sure to keep your dreams wet. Not that kind of wet. Okay, I'll stop. Bye bye.